Those of us who have been true readers all our life seldom fully realize the enormous extension of our being which we owe to authors. We realize it best when we talk with an unliterary friend. He may be full of goodness and good sense, but he inhabits a tiny world. In it, we should be suffocated. Hey guys, I wanted to sit down today and have a chat about C.S. Lewis's An Experiment in Criticism. This is not a book about what is a good book versus what is a bad book. It's not about good or bad books. This is a book about what is good reading and what is bad reading. How do we read well and how do we read poorly? As I read through this book, I had to ask myself the question, am I a literary reader or an unliterary reader? According to how Lewis is defining these terms, and that's sort of the question that I'm going to challenge you to ask yourself as well as you watch this video and as you hopefully go and read An Experiment in Criticism for yourself. Ask yourself the question, am I a literary reader? If not, if you know that you fall into some of the mistakes that unliterary readers make, how do you improve? Before we get started, I just want to make that disclaimer. All of us make some of these mistakes that Lewis says unliterary readers make all the time. And so when you hear the description of the unliterary reader, you might see yourself in a few things. Maybe you see yourself in all of them, and in that case, maybe you need to reconsider how you read and why you read and change the way you read going forward. But if you see yourself in a few of them, I do myself, and I consider myself a good reader because I live in books. I'm constantly reading. I teach literature. There are a few things that I love more than literature and reading and listening to authors from different time periods and different places. I love these things, I live these things, and yet I still make some of the mistakes that unliterary readers make, according to C.S. Lewis. And so don't feel bad about yourself. Don't think you need to give up and that you suck and that your entire reading journey up to this point has been a waste, because that isn't true. This book is not meant to make us feel bad or give up on reading. It's also not meant to be a tool to go around telling people, oh, you're an unliterary reader. Well, I'm a literary reader. That's not what C.S. Lewis is advocating for here. He just wants us to be good readers. He wants us to figure out how to be a good reader, to improve in our reading. This is a journey that takes time. It takes a whole lifetime. It's not something that you're born with. It's a skill that needs to be cultivated. And so that's why I'm sharing it with you today on this channel, because I know a lot of you are readers and you love books, and I want to help you be better readers, just as I want to be a better reader, with C.S. Lewis as our guide, because I do think that this is a fantastic book in that what he's saying is true and there's weight to it and that we should take it seriously. So let's get into it. C.S. Lewis's main argument. So he's critiquing some of the aims and the methods of literary criticism in his time that he was seeing in the universities around him, which judged books really harshly. The literary critics were quick to condemn authors and gatekeep sort of the palace of what is good or bad literature, what's in or what's out in literature. There were critics making statements like, these 5 authors are the best authors of all time and the only authors that serious readers should be reading. And C.S. Lewis is like, no, let's rethink the way that we're thinking about reading and we're thinking about books. And he proposes that instead of judging books, we should judge how a reader reads a book. Instead of constantly being occupied with the question, is this good or bad literature, think about, am I reading it well or not? A good book, Lewis proposes, is one which is read in one way, aka the literary way by the literary reader, while a bad book is one which is read in another way, the unliterary way. And so the truly bad book is therefore one of which a good reading is impossible. But we can only find out if a book is bad in this sense by reading it first and opening ourselves to it. When we approach a book, we should presume that it's a good piece of art until we're proven otherwise. And so it's all about, can you give this book a good reading? Can you as a literary person read this book and see it for what it is and enjoy it and get something out of it? If not even the best of literary readers amongst us can do a good reading of this book to the point where they think that was worth my time, then it's probably not a good book. But until we're at that point, we presume a book is good, we read it, we listen to it, we let ourselves be shaped by it and changed by it before we evaluate. More on that later. So first, I want to just distinguish between the literary reader and the unliterary reader. I'm not the one making these distinctions, this is Lewis, but I think they're accurate. So the unliterary reader is one who never reads anything twice. Once he's read a book, he checks it off his list, he forgets about it, he moves on. In contrast, the literary reader is one who returns to the same works over and over again, out of love for them, out of a sense of there's value here and this is a beautiful work of art that I need to put myself before and open myself up to. The unliterary reader uses books for his own purposes and considers them dead and useless once he's done with them. Key word there is uses, and we'll get into later what it means to use a book. Whereas the literary reader enjoys the book for itself, looks at it as a piece of art, experiences in it something so momentous that only experiences of love, religion, and bereavement can compare to it. The unliterary reader turns to reading as a last resource to fill the time. Reading is sort of a marginal activity. It's not central to their being. It's not the most significant part of their life and what they do with their time. Whereas the literary reader looks for those moments of leisure and silence in which they can read and just sit before the book, open themselves to the book. For them, reading is a main ingredient to their well-being. It's a part of who they are. It's not just what they do when they're at the beach and they're bored and there's nothing else to do. It's what they yearn for every day and seek to make time for because they need it. They need it to stay alive. In a sense, in a, sort of spiritual, emotional sense, not physically, obviously. The unliterary reader is not changed by books or stories. He doesn't have this literary experience that leaves him just with his world shook. Whereas the literary reader, they have this experience time and time again, and I just described what that sort of looks like. Yeah, they let books change them. In fact, that's what they expect when they pick up a book. They expect to be challenged and changed. The unliterary reader does not reflect on or talk about his reading. Once he's done with the book, it's just out of his mind. He doesn't feel the need to share about it or talk about it with someone, whereas the literary reader can't help but reflect on and think over his reading and talk about it with other people and share it and look for people who have read that book too. There's nothing like that feeling of reading a book and knowing somebody else has read it and getting together with that person and just talking about how fantastic the book was and how it worked on you and changed you. That's just the best feeling, and that's what a literary person does. An unliterary person can live without books. A literary person cannot live without books. An unliterary person is concerned with events and plots. That's all they care about, is sort of the sensationalist, what's happening, are we moving through this story, like what's going to happen next. Whereas the literary reader is concerned with style, the words themselves, what they mean, how they feel, how they sound. What they experience when reading a work goes far beyond just the sensation of moving through a plot and exciting events. In Chapter 4, C.S. Lewis spends more time thinking about the reading of the unliterary, and some of the behaviors of the unliterary reader are as follows. So they're never compelled, they never want to read anything that's not narrative, that's not just strict events. Something like the news, they love the news. The most unliterary person reads only the news, which has nothing to do with him. They have no ears, they read exclusively by eye. They are unconscious of style. They enjoy narratives with limited dialogue. They prefer strip stories told in pictures. They demand swift-moving narrative. Something must always be happening. They're concerned with the events. They're deaf to the oral side of what they read because rhythm and melody don't help him discover, who married whom. The unliterary reader never intends to give the words more than the bare minimum of attention necessary for extracting the event. He doesn't value good writing. He doesn't value words. He loves cliches that make events quickly recognizable, such as, my blood ran cold. That's like a hieroglyph for fear. Okay, I know the guy's afraid. Moving on, what's he afraid of? That's what the unliterary reader is most concerned about. I do want to say here, and C.S. Lewis is intentional about saying this, he says that the unliterary are unliterary not because they enjoy events or stories that are exciting, mysterious, or pleasurable. Stories are allowed to be those things, but because they can enjoy no other kind of story. The idea of getting pleasure out of the excitement or the mystery of a story, that's not wrong. These enjoyments are shared by good literary readers who read good books. You can have pleasure, you can have that enjoyment, you can be getting happiness out of it. And in a sense then, the book is serving you and you're getting something from it. You're using it in that sense, I suppose. That's not wrong, but if that's all there is to your reading, if that's the only kind of reading you do, that's when you're an unliterary person. C.S. Lewis says, those who seek only vicarious happiness in their reading are unliterary, but those who pretend that it can never be an ingredient in good reading are wrong. So sort of going back to the question of what does it mean to use a book, just as a way of taking precautionary measures so that we aren't always doing this. The person who uses a book is always concerned is concerned primarily with what the book will give him. For example, will it give me status, bragging rights? Will it make me feel like I'm a really intelligent person? Will it give me sort of an emotional experience, like happiness, like joy, or some other self-indulgent sort of emotional pleasure? Will it give me inspiration so that I can go and do or make something? Is it giving me entertainment to pass the time? That's what the unliterary reader is primarily concerned with. And also, he may be concerned with how will this book improve me, but that's also using the book, even if that concern isn't necessarily wrong in itself, right? Like, how will this book make me smarter? How will it make me more credible amongst my peers? Or how will it help me to impress my professors? It's not like it's wrong to be smart or to have a good knowledge of literature or impress your professors, but if that's your primary reason for reading, you should probably check yourself on that, because that's not doing justice to the book, to the work of art, to what it is. You don't really care what the author had to say or what he's saying through the piece of literature. You're only concerned with what you get out of it. The intention of reading is fixed on yourself. So, all this to say, if you're a reader and you have a book and you want to read it, what ought you to do with it? How should you read it? Lewis doesn't give us a ton of really practical tips or applications on how to read a book well. He's primarily concerned with contrasting the literary and the unliterary reader, but of course we can sort of pick up on, okay, if this is what a literary reader looks like, we should follow his example, and this is how we should read. So what I've kind of gleaned from C.S. Lewis is that you have a book, stop and look at the thing itself. Assume that it is good. Open yourself up to it. Read to the end. Listen carefully. Allow it to move you and change you. Surrender. Look, listen, receive. After that, there may be room for evaluation where you say, okay, was that book worth my time reading? Should I recommend it to other people? But primarily and first and foremost, you need to get yourself out of the way. You need to look at the book as a work of art for what it is, also as something that is communicating something, right? This author is communicating something. Look at that. Don't look through it. Don't look out for yourself. Don't let this work of art be a mirror where you're only ever seeing yourself, validating yourself, somehow just turning it into some lesson about yourself or way to improve yourself, right? Like, we're so self-centered. Oh, I see myself in that character. I don't see myself in this character. Or this character makes me want to be this or do this. It's all about us. We can't help but do that. And Lewis is saying, don't do that. His concern and mine is to learn what a work is. If you're going to talk about it to other people, show them what a work is in its context, in its time, as the author intended it to be, literally as it is. Then invite others in to read it and allow humanity over time to decide if it's worth reading, right? The classics have been proved by time, tried by time, because so many people over so many centuries have been able to read a book well. That's when a book sort of becomes a classic, and we can sort of trust that that is a good book, even if we don't see it right away. We can trust that because so many people have read it well and had it change them and move them and impact them in their life, it must be a good book. You know, it's worth giving it a read. And so even just thinking about what I do here on my channel, I don't want to be, reading books and then telling you what you should think of them, whether or not you should read them, always passing judgment on books. What should be my primary concern is to tell you what a book is, what it's about, what the author's saying, sharing something about its context as best I can, which is not perfect because I am not an expert and I'm not a perfect reader, and it will take me reread after reread after reread to truly understand a book and be able to communicate that to others well. I love what Lewis says here when he says, it matters more to see precisely what sort of poet Homer is than to tell the world how much it ought to like that sort of poet. And so I want that to be my concern as I read and as I share my reading journey with people here on YouTube, to show what kind of an author this is. Who are they? What are they? What is this book? Rather than trying to be a literary critic and pass judgment on it and tell you what to think of it and, sort of hold it up to sort of undefined arbitrary standards, all that kind of thing. So this iconic quote by Lewis sort of sums up everything that he's trying to say in An Experiment in Criticism. He says, those of us who have been true readers all our life seldom fully realize the enormous extension of our being which we owe to authors. We realize it best when we talk with an unliterary friend. He may be full of goodness and good sense, but he inhabits a tiny world. In it, we should be suffocated. The man who is contented to be only himself and therefore less a self, is in prison. My own eyes are not enough for me. I will see through those of others. Reality, even seen through the eyes of many, is not enough. I will see what others have invented. Even the eyes of all humanity are not enough. I regret that the brutes cannot write books. Very gladly would I learn what face things present to a mouse or a bee. More gladly still would I perceive the olfactory world charged with all the information and emotion it carries for a dog. Right? It's that genuine interest in seeing through someone else's eyes and living their experiences and seeing the world as they see it. That should be the primary concern of us as readers. And so I want to end with this because this is how C.S. Lewis ends his book. He says, "In reading great literature, I become 1,000 men and yet remain myself. Like the night sky in the Greek poem, I see with a myriad eyes, but it is still I who see. Here, as in worship, in love, in moral action, and in knowing, I transcend myself, and am never more myself than when I do." And I don't know if you've experienced that. I certainly have. And there's really no feeling like it in the world. And the literary experience is truly indescribable. It's something that I wish for everyone to have and to experience. But how do we get there? It starts with reading right and becoming a literary reader and developing those eyes that can see, and learning how to step into other people's shoes and see the world with other eyes. And so that's where I want to end this video. I feel like I haven't done the best job explaining or really walking through this book. I've been processing this book for a while now and sort of just figuring out what it all means and how to take it and apply it to myself and to my own reading life. But I hope you enjoyed nonetheless, and I really do hope that you will go and just get yourself a copy of An Experiment in Criticism for yourself. It's not too long. It's broken up into nice sizable chapters. Just give Lewis a chance, especially if you aren't sure about some of these things that he's communicated through me in this video. If you have questions about it, concerns, if you're interested in more of the deeper philosophy behind some of the things that I may have said in this video that I didn't get into in depth, then go read this book for yourself. And let me know what you think. Let me know if you've read it, what you think of his idea of the literary versus the unliterary reader, if there are other marks of the literary or the unliterary, if you think some of these marks aren't true or don't make sense. Yeah, I'm definitely interested to know your take on reading and what it means to be a good reader, so let me know in the comments below. Please do like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you again very soon.